The movie Y2K is coming out soon, but we're kicking it back to 2000 a little bit early here with Gladiator, the OG Gladiator. Gladiator 2 is out there this weekend. We did a review of it a while ago, as early as we possibly could, so keep an eye out for that. We'll link to that at the end there as well. But Alonzo, you were not a giant fan of the original Oscar-winning Gladiator, so of course, being the good friend that I am, I forced you to rewatch it and talk about it with me here.
Thanks. Right, cheers. Thanks a lot.
Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance.
So Russell Crowe plays Maximus, which is like the porniest name imaginable, and he's a beloved Roman officer fighting under Caesar Marcus Aurelius, played by Richard Harris. And Richard Harris is dying and wants Rome turned back into a republic with the SPQR, Senatum Populusque Romanus. It's been a long time since I took Latin to be back in charge. But this news does not go well with his son Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix. And so Commodus strangles Marcus Aurelius, and then when it's clear that Maximus is not going to hop on board as a lackey, has him dragged out and murdered. But oops, he doesn't die. He gets away, but by the time he makes it back home to his beloved wife and son, they have been horribly murdered by Commodus's soldiers. The crops are burned, and then Maximus gets captured and turned into a gladiator. Wouldn't you know it, he is in the arena in Rome, becoming a star right as Commodus is trying to nail down his power. And so now the emperor must contend with the fact that this gladiator is so beloved in the arena that he could unseat him. Oh, what will happen? It's a big spectacle, and it does that well in a lot of ways. I mean, if you want your thousands of extras, there they are on screen. This is a big movie with lots of battle sequences and gladiator fights and all of that stuff.
Horses, sandals.
So many horses. Yes. We talked about this before. The first one I watched on a VHS screener toward the end of the year because I was voting in LAFCA, but I had not reviewed it. And I turned it off because I was kind of bored. And so, I never finished it. And so last night I watched it again, and sorry, y'all, still bored. I'll say this. I know why you like it. Okay. And I don't judge you for liking it. Anybody out there who is into this movie, I see the appeal of it.
Okay.
It's just not my jam. And the fact that they kill off the wife and kid means that the only stakes that are left for Russell Crowe is, I'm going to kill me some Joaquin Phoenix.
Right. Vengeance.
It's all vengeance.
In this life or the next.
Yeah. And that's not a ton to hang a movie this big on. And so, because it is a big Hollywood spectacle, he's going to get that vengeance. So it's just a question of when. And, they're going to make you wait a good hour and a half, 2 hours to get there from the point where that's all he's got in his mind. So, these Russell Crowe, I think, is a really talented actor. He was just coming off of The Insider, which I think is one of his best performances ever. And in this, kind of like Paul Mescal in the new one, he's mainly called upon to be this big block of, dude.
Russell Crowe gets more to do here, though, than Paul Mescal gets to do in the sequel, I would say. There's a deeper loss, and he's able to convey it more convincingly. I think Paul Mescal has to remain pretty stoic the whole way through. And then he's also splitting heroic good guy duties with Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, who watching this again, it was like you realize it's almost like they bisected the Russell Crowe character into those two, because Paul Mescal has all of the gladiator fighting and vengeance wanting, and Pedro Pascal has all of the, I'm going to go lead the troops and we're going to unseat the Caesars. And it is more effective here where it's one guy juggling all of those things. And as much as I think Ridley Scott is really great at big battles and fights and stuff, there's so many fight sequences here, especially the first big battle in Germania against the barbarians or whatever, where it's just cut, cut like every 5 seconds there's an edit and you can't see a thing, and that I find that kind of wearying, you know, like in the same way that I don't like how contemporary musicals very often do a ton of cutting because it just means they didn't have time to rehearse the dancing so that people could do it all in one fluid, uncut movement. Like, give me something like, you know, the Raid 2. Or the Raid Redemption, whatever it's called, you know, where like that scene in the subway car or something like that. Give me a long battle sequence of flowing violence that is
any David Leitch movie, right? Like Atomic Blonde, Bullet Train, like he's down for showing us the choreography in full.
Absolutely. And so like there was just so much chopping around in this movie, and even in some of the gladiatorial sequences where I was kind of like, I would be more into this if I could really get a feel of what's happening and how it's happening and watch it unfold in front of me. But, you know, and look, if I were an Oscar voter in 2000, I think I would have gone for either of the Soderbergh movies, and maybe he divided his own base. You know, he had Traffic and Aaron Brockovich going that year. You also had Crouching Tiger, which people really loved, and which is you know, that's a conversation for another day. I had gone to a lot of Hong Kong movies in the 90s. So by the time that movie came out, I was like, well, this is nice, but I've seen Peking Opera Blues, and I've seen, you know, other films that are doing the same thing. So yeah, I don't know. Did you watch it again?
I watched it again, and I know some of our folks were like, you got to watch the extended director's cut. A couple weeks ago, before we saw Gladiator 2, I rewatched the original cut of it.
Right.
And again, like, I was impressed by the old-fashioned kind of like stately nature of it. It's for all of its horrors and bloodshed and the deep loss that Russell Crowe's character feels, like it's a pretty safe movie in a lot of ways. As you say, the end is a foregone conclusion. He will get his revenge. It's just a matter of like how long will it take, and how will it happen, and how painful will it be for Joaquin Phoenix's character. So I thought it was a totally solid, old-fashioned, sweeping historical epic. And like you, I can totally see why it won. The Academy was very different back then, right? It was as an older and I think more traditional voting base than we see now, where it's younger and it's more diverse, and they take chances on movies like Parasite and Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I can see why it won then, because it harkens to a certain kind of old-fashioned big studio filmmaking. Yeah,
for sure. It's the kind of thing you could have seen them release in the 50s with, like, you know, an overture and an intermission.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I liked it. I didn't love Gladiator either when it came out originally. I thought Joaquin Phoenix what he's doing is so silly. It feels like it belongs in a whole different movie, but also like, thank God he's there, because otherwise it's just so serious, you know, in tone, and so heavy and so self-important. And like Joaquin Phoenix is just like, you know, juicing it up a little bit at least.
Yeah, he's the closest this movie gets to having jokes, which he isn't, but at least you're right. It is a change in tone. Did you, by the way, read Kyle Buchanan's interview with Ridley Scott about Gladiator 2, where he asked him about Joaquin Phoenix after the whole, you know, Todd Haynes debacle that happened recently? And apparently Joaquin almost pulled that crap on Gladiator. Like, he was literally putting on his costume. He was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't. And he was going to try and leave. And like Russell Crowe had to kind of shame him and be like, you're not being professional, mate. And that's what made him stay. So I guess this is a thing that Joaquin Phoenix has a history of doing, where he gets cold feet at the last minute and doesn't want to do movies. So,
well, it got him an Oscar nomination.
He got an Oscar nomination for this one, exactly. So, you know, clearly cooler heads prevailed. So yeah, I'm not mad at this movie. I see the appeal of it. It definitely has that sort of old school grandeur and all of that stuff. It just, I was not entertained.
Yeah. Connie Nielsen's lovely and does what she has to do to provide like, you know, a source of grace here. And you kind of feel that longing that she and Russell Crowe have for each other. Like that feels real, you know, and it is just delicate enough. And, you know, it's shot really well. It's the same cinematographer who shot Gladiator 2. Like it's shot really well. Like all the production values are all there.
Derek Jacobi pops in for some gravitas. And, you know, hats off to any director who ran a set that had Russell Russell Crowe and Richard Harris and Oliver Reed on it. Like that's you got your hands full, sir.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it, but and people quote it all the time, and I know it's memeable forever. You know, the whole "Are you not entertained?" and the whole "I am Maximus," blah blah blah, the whole spiel.
Husband of a slain wife, or whatever. Yeah, it is. I'm sure in the dad movie pantheon. So
right, Shawshank Redemption, Field of Dreams.
Yes. Yep.
American Graffiti, Gladiator. All right, it's all there. So I don't even want to give this movie a number.
No.
Gladiator.
It has an Oscar. Who cares what we say?
It has many Oscars, actually.
That's true. You're right.
Not just Best Picture. Russell Crowe won as well. I think it got some technical stuff. Yeah,
they were making up for not giving it to him for The Insider. I think.
Right. He was great in LA Confidential, too. This is like a good period for Russell Crowe
for
here.
Sure.
So, all right. Let us know what you think. Will you see Gladiator 2? Are you pumped for it? We love going back and rewatching old movies like this, and so we'll keep doing that.